Hey Shane,
Hey, how are you?
good. How are you?
I'm good. So what's new?
So I have been trying to keep up with the schedule, but I tested positive for COVID on Wednesday, so I got kind of behind.
That
My
sucks.
voice is still gone,
Sorry
but
about that.
by the next time we meet.
Oh, what were you saying?
My voice is a little gone, but hopefully it'll be
Oh,
back by the next.
sure, sure. Um, okay.
So far I've gone through some of the Jack Weston diagnostics, but they were kind of long. And then I've been keeping up with Anki and cars.
Mhm.
But for cars, I've been struggling with philosophy passages
Yeah.
and kind of like main idea questions. Like I'll get the main idea. Like I noticed Jack Weston has them at the bottom. So like I'll get it, but like I won't be able to like answer the questions that the passage asks about them for the most part. Like I'll usually get like a 5 out of 6 and I'll usually miss like a main idea question.
Mhm.
So I don't really understand why, like I don't understand why I'm missing them because I have the main idea right. So I don't know if it's the type of question or what's going on, but like there was one in today's Jack Weston passage that I missed.
Mhm.
Um, and I just like don't know like why if I'm getting the main idea correct, then I don't know why I'm missing them, I guess.
Got it. So do you want to like go over one of those passages where, you know, you got the main idea?
I
Like,
was kind of hoping we could go over one, like we could go over the question I missed today, and then we could go through like a philosophy passage today together, like we did last time. So that way I could kind of see if maybe it's the type of passage why I'm missing
Mhm.
the questions, or just like to make sure I can get the philosophy ones down because I'm like really struggling with those ones. Those ones are the ones that I've been missing the most on.
Got it. Look.
Um, Let me pull up the question I missed today.
Mhm.
Let me see. Should I just share my screen?
You can do that.
Okay. Um, so I don't have any of my highlighting here because I've been doing it on my iPad and doing it like color wise, like you did last time. Um, but for the main idea, I missed number 5. For the main idea, that it was, I put language is not pure because it's always mixing through interactions, like the Latin influence on English.
Hmm.
And then this question is apparently a main idea question,
Yeah.
but I narrowed it down to these two, B and D, and then the correct answer was D, but I ended up putting B because
Yeah.
I just thought this correlated more to the Latin influence on English, which is the main idea. And I know this is only mentioned in one paragraph, so maybe that's why I got it wrong. Like it's more of a localized answer choice, but I just didn't see why it was D. I don't know if you need to read the passage or anything.
Oh, what was the last thing you said?
I just don't know why it's like D. That's basically what I said.
So do you want me to like read the passage and
Yeah, I don't know if you need to read it or if you just want me to click the choice and you read through that,
uh
or if you
I'll
run through my map.
yeah. Yeah, I'll maybe I'll read it. So,
Okay.
um unless yeah, unless there's like another passage that you want to do like together.
Yeah, I guess we could just do another passage.
Yeah, yeah. Because I'm gonna
Should I?
have to read it to answer it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Did you want to pull one up? Because I've done majority of like the recent ones,
Mhm.
I guess.
Yeah, this is
Fine.
linguistics, right?
What was that?
That was a linguistics passage, right?
Yeah, it was based off linguistics, which wasn't bad. I just don't know why I missed that one. Well,
Mhm.
I guess I get it after I read through the choices, but I don't know. I keep missing the same type of question. So I'm trying to pinpoint one.
Got it. So, okay, let me see. Let me pick out philosophy one.
Then I also did have one other general question about how I should be reviewing the Jack Weston diagnostic tool. Like, should I just be making Anki cards on it, or like, what should I be doing to make sure I get that stuff down?
Um, so first you could read the solution and see if it makes sense from the solution. If it doesn't make sense from the solution, you could use whatever resources you have, like if it's videos or uh MCAT books or anything like that to learn about that material. And if it still doesn't make sense even after that, when we meet, we can go over it.
Mhm.
Um, but as for making Anki notes, I mean, if it's like a question that you got wrong because you just like didn't know like the answer rather than a question that you got wrong because of, maybe doing something with the math or something conceptual or something like that. But yeah, if it's something that it's just something that you have to know content wise, sure, you can make an Anki deck. But I think for the most part, we just want to ensure that you understand the stuff that you got wrong. Uh, Here, I put a link in the chat for a passage.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so should I just read out loud?
Yeah, if it's not too painful.
It's not too painful.
Yeah.
It should be fine. Okay. According to David Hume, reason cannot truly motivate us to act, but the passions which we do motivate us most of the time and are themselves neither reasonable nor unreasonable.
Oh yeah, so just go like yeah, sentence by sentence. So like after that first sentence, tell us what you see or what they're saying.
Okay. So I see this person, David Hume, and then I see reason cannot truly motivate us to act. So this is kind of like it's just saying basically that our motivation on what causes us to do certain things isn't because of reason.
Hmm. Good. So we have our new idea here,
Mhm.
argument. Okay, good. And I see that you highlighted the contrast word after. Uh,
Yeah.
you can continue.
But the passions which do motivate us most of the time are themselves neither reasonable nor unreasonable. So this is just, it's kind of going against the statement and saying that passions, which typically are the motivational factor, aren't exactly reasonable or unreasonable in terms of motivation.
Okay.
And then Hume claims a passion is an original existence and contains not any representative quality, including through reasoning. So, um, so I guess this is where I start getting confused. I feel like it's a complex, like these complex ideas start coming up, and I don't know how to like kind of like define what exactly they mean by like a passion is an original existence. Like,
Yeah, so far it's pretty confusing and abstract. So okay, if Hume first is telling us that reason cannot motivate us to act, then says that the passions could motivate us to act, and the passions are not based on reason, and they're not based on, or that they're not unreasonable either. Um, and now we're saying that it's an original existence, like it's always there. Um, and it's not meant to represent anything. It just is what it is.
yeah.
So, yeah, pretty tough so far here. Let me write. So, okay, for this paragraph, what can we write?
I think we should probably mention David Hume and then that reason isn't motivation, but passion is, and is passion already exists.
Okay. Sorry, tell me that one more time.
Oh, I said David Hume says that reason isn't enough for motivating us. Passion motivates us, which already exists.
And then I'll just add one more thing. Um,
That it's not linked to reason.
yep. So I put Hume, reason does not equal act, but passions do, which are not reason slash unreason and its own existence.
Okay, so passions are thus incapable of being true or false. So is this kind of more supporting? That was another thing that I noticed, like coming up with whether something was a new idea or something was supporting. I guess in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't necessarily make a difference if I be like, because as long as I have it highlighted, right?
Oh no, you want to be able to tell if it's a new idea or same idea. So the previous
Yeah,
idea was telling us, or the previous idea was just that passion, um, is what motivates us, and that it's not the same thing as reason. And now we're saying that passions are incapable of being true or false.
I guess I would call that more of a new idea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what, there.
Doesn't say anything about being true or false to begin with.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think um I don't know where they're gonna go with this. So it may be something that could be like the same idea, or at least like an add-on, like a modification. But I think actually so I think you're right. Ultimately, doesn't matter too much if it's same idea or new idea, as long as we, you know, write it, in our map. So yeah, you're right. It doesn't matter that much.
Okay. So this is just saying that passions can't be true or false.
Yeah.
They can, yeah, oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. And also the word thus is what makes me think that we could consider it to be like a same idea or like an add-on or something like that. But ultimately, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, good. So yeah. They can't be true or false, okay? And
They can neither have nor lack rational warrant, can neither be congruent or inconsistent with the requirements of reason. So they don't have rational warrant and they can't be congruent or inconsistent with requirements of reason. Yeah. See, like I feel like the jargon confuses me.
yeah, it's quite confusing. It's definitely one of the more confusing ones that I've seen this passage so far. So now we're saying kind of what we said a little bit in the previous paragraph, where
Yeah.
they said it's neither reasonable nor unreasonable.
Mhm.
But now we're saying that, they neither have nor lack rational warrants. So far, it seems very hard for us to get a concrete idea of what passions mean, because so far we're just given kind of like um kind of like contradictory things. Like it's not reasonable, it's not unreasonable, it's not true, it's not false. It doesn't have or doesn't lack rational warrants, can't be congruent nor inconsistent. There's a lot of, you know, paradoxical language here. So hopefully it'll get better.
Yeah. Should I just continue then with that I was highlighting? Okay. Contemporary readers have challenged Hume on just this point, arguing that emotion can be the result of reasoning. Okay, so this is just saying um, contemporary readers don't agree with Hume in the fact and regarding rational warrant, and that emotion needs to be or is an outcome of reasoning.
Excellent. So we finally have a nice new idea here.
Mhm.
Because and it says something definitively. It says that no, Hume is not right. Emotions, which we're equating to passions,
Mhm.
can be because of reasoning. So,
Mhm.
okay, that's good. So, yep.
Mistake here is to assume that what Hume or other 18th century writers meant by passion is what 20th century writers mean by emotion. So I guess it's trying to differentiate between what 18th century writers meant by passion and what 20th century writers meant by by emotion.
All right. So now, um, I'm a little. I don't know if they're saying that the mistake is what Hume said, or if the mistake is what contemporary readers are saying. But I guess if they're saying that, and it's funny because before this sentence I was saying, okay, so passion and emotions are the same, but now that they're actually addressing it, they're saying that what Hume talked about was passion, and what these contemporary readers think the word like equate the word to is emotion, and that somehow leads to a mistake. So I don't know if that mistake means that Hume is not wrong and that the 20th century, contemporary readers are wrong. So
Mhm.
still kind of confusing, but we're just going to try our best here. So paragraph two, what are your thoughts here?
So passions, I guess I'd start by saying passions are not true or false, and lack rational warrant, or sorry, and they can't lack rational warrant. And then I would say that there's a difference between contemporary readers are against Hume, believing that emotions result from reasoning, and that there's a mistake to assume that Hume and other writers from the 18th century and their use of passion is the same as what 20th century writers meant by emotion.
Good. So I put an arrow to the above, cannot be TF, true, false.
Yeah.
Contemporary readers challenge Hume, saying that emotions are equal to reasoning. I mean, it's really the result of reasoning, but I just wrote equals reasoning. And then that it's a mistake to think that, or could be a mistake to think that 18th century, aka when Hume was alive, I guess, um, passion equates to emotion, which is what we think of in 20th century. Okay.
So passions are, on Hume's view, preconceptional and pre-linguistic. So this is defining what Hume thinks about passions.
Okay. What do you think these weird words look like?
Um, like new ideas.
Oh, just the well, this is a new idea, but I just mean the word like preconceptual and pre-linguistic.
Um, so coming before,
Hmm?
like coming before the use of language
Hmm?
and coming before like the use of like thoughts, I guess.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. Yeah, I don't know if that's what they're gonna mean afterwards, but so far I take it to mean that if it's preconceptual, it's before you could if you conceptualize something, you're using your brain, you're using reason. Uh
Uh-huh.
so Hume's view is that passions are not reason. So it makes sense that Hume would think that it's preconceptual and pre-linguistic. Um, good, 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 good.
Okay. So these qualities are what enable him to speak of animals and humans sharing passions. So he thinks that both animals and humans share passions.
Yeah, so kind of have example here,
Mhm.
uh, and it's kind of showing us that hey, animals are perfect examples of pre-linguistic, preconceptual things, and that they can, still feel passion.
Yeah. Sorry. Judgment or beliefs may, of course, be conjoined to and associated with passions, but the passion is quite distinct from the judgment or belief and has quite different properties. Um, so I guess it's comparing judgment and beliefs, saying that they can be associated with passions, but passions are distinct from the two. And yeah.
Yep.
So there's an association, but there's still a distinction between judgments and beliefs and
Yep.
passions.
Hmm.
And then by contrast, so I guess would we highlight that in pink? Or would that not be something we highlight?
Um, that's a good question. I guess by contrast, we know that afterwards it's going to be something um different. So maybe I would say, okay.
Okay. By contrast, what we call an emotion is a complex pattern, regularity of feeling, judgment, and expression in action, such that each element is a necessary part of the whole.
All right.
So now it's talking about emotions and how the reader slash the audience defines it.
Okay.
And it says that it's complex feelings.
Yep. So prior to this, I didn't highlight judgment or beliefs because I was just filing them under, you know, reason or mental stuff. But now, since they're talking about emotion having judgment and beliefs, I'm gonna go back and highlight that. So judgment, beliefs associated with passions, but it's really distinct.
Mhm.
But what we, and I like how you caught on to the we, the italicized we call an emotion, or what we call an emotion, is this, complex pattern, regularity of feeling, judgment, and all of this stuff. So, good.
Okay. Hume's passions are things like desire and aversion, grief and joy, hope and fear. So now it's talking about how Hume defines passion.
Yep. And so far, this passage has been tough because we've only been talking about what passion is not.
Mhm,
So, you know, what,
mhm,
right? So now we can say that it's so Hume's. I mean, this isn't like, a straight up evidence, but it's like an example. Some that, I'm going to highlight it in orange here. So, for Hume, passions are things like desire, aversion, grief, joy, hope, and fear.
mhm.
Okay.
Our emotions are things like happiness, sadness, boredom, and surprise, guilt, and gratitude. So now it's defining our emotions.
Okay.
Hume's passions are pre-emotional states. So it's just going into that same idea that has been mentioned a couple times where um, passion already exists before emotions.
Yeah, so let's see. The desire part, the aversion part, the grief, the joy, the hope, and the fear
Mhm.
apparently are pre-emotional, and whereas emotional is happiness, sadness, boredom, you know, surprise, guilt, gratitude. So, okay.
Their repetition in relation to an object or situation might eventually crystallize into an emotion, but they themselves are more like an immediate feeling. So, repeating passions in relation to something can become emotion, is what this is trying to say. But passions themselves are your initial reaction or initial feelings.
Uh-huh. So, okay, the repetition in relation to an object or situation might eventually crystallize into an emotion, but
Mhm.
they are in themselves more like an immediate feeling. So, I guess, let's see.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll just do like this.
Mhm.
Okay, what can we put for this?
So I would say that this paragraph is talking about how passions come before conception, or I guess before reason and before language and before emotion in terms of Hume's beliefs. But what the audience believes is that emotions are complex feelings and eventually repetition of emotions or repetition of passions or repetition, I guess, yeah, repetition can eventually lead to an emotion. And then I guess I should throw something in there about how passions are an immediate feeling, right? That seems important.
See. Or passion, according to Hume, passion, which is something that animals can feel, is preconceptual, pre-linguistic, pre-emotional. For example, desire, hope, joy, fear. Emotions are, oh, the immediate feeling part. What's that?
I thought that went with
Oh, yeah, yeah. So, okay. Yeah, I put it after the stuff about passion. So, yeah. And then afterwards, we talk about emotion. So, maybe I'll put afterwards like emotions for the happiness, sadness, etc. Okay.
okay. However, this does not mean that we should make a sharp distinction between passions and the exterior world. So it's saying that we shouldn't make a distinct a distinction between passions and I guess the outside world.
Perfect.
Passions in Hume's account, after all, can direct human to act in relation to objects outside the self. Okay, so now it's talking about how passions, in terms of what Hume believes, can lead to humans acting in accordance to how they feel about something in the outside world.
Mhm.
And then the vocabulary of intentionality was not available to Hume, but he understands that objects of a particular passion that he understands that objects of a particular passion of particular passions on particular occasions as internal to those passions in just that way that intentionality requires. So, um, just talking about how, and it's, I guess, talking about intentionality
Yeah.
and how passions, um, I guess, passion requires intention.
Yeah, let's see. So the vocabulary of intentionality was not available to Hume, but he understands the objects of particular passions on particular occasions as internal to those passions in just that way that intentionality requires. Um, whatever that means. Um, so yeah, whenever we encounter sentences that don't make the most sense here, your best bet is just to continue reading because it'll likely be condensed or explained better.
So the passion is not a representation, but it contains a representation of an object. So passions represent an option or contain a representation of an object.
Mhm.
I guess, don't understand what that has to do with intentionality. Do I
Yeah.
just keep reading?
Mhm.
Okay. So
Yep.
we can characterize the relationship of,
Right on out for this.
oh, yes, sorry, I skipped.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, we shouldn't, I guess, like the most important thing is we shouldn't make a distinction between passions and the exterior world or outside world. And the humans act in a way. Um, so wait, passion, according to Hume, makes humans act in relation to the outside world.
Mhm. So,
And then something about how passions contain representations of an object.
let me see. Error to the above, no distinction between passions and the external world. Hume says you got to act outside of yourself. Passion is not a representation, but contains representations of objects. Okay.
We can characterize the relationship of the person feeling the passion to the object by such phrases as to get such and such, or to have such and such, or to do such and such. So we can kind of, I guess, create a, we can characterize, I guess, how someone feel, or, um, sorry, I'm trying to, I guess, make sense of this.
Mhm.
So we can characterize the relation of the person who feels passion and the object by the phrases that are mentioned.
Okay, so we're talking here about the relationship of the person feeling the passion
Mm,
to the object.
mm.
Mhm.
So one is afraid to get bitten by a snake or joyful to have a balloon or desirous to go for a ride on a bike.
So,
So example.
are these emotions or past passions?
Um so these are passions.
Good. And and then okay, what are like the reason for these examples here?
It's trying to give an example of how exactly the phrases are used, I guess, creating a tie between like like the feeling of like passion to like an action or object.
Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Great job.
Passions are directed towards objects, and because they are directed towards objects, they can motivate human action in one way rather than another. So I guess it's kind of giving the importance of passions in relation to objects and how they kind of like that passion is like kind of like a motivating factor, or the object is kind of a motivating factor for passion.
Mhm. So we could say,
Um, there is a relation between passion and objects, and passion kind of creates motivation because of objects.
yep, so put relationship, passion to object. Um, for example, bitten by snake, etc. Passions directed towards objects. Okay.
Commentators who recognize that Hume's passions have intentional objects sometimes wrongly ascribe to Hume the view that passions are similar to reason. So it's giving I guess it's saying like it's important to note that commentators who like recognized Hume's definition for passion sometimes wrongly compare passions to reasons.
Uh-huh. Or yeah, so if Hume is saying that passions have intentional objects, it could be, you know, a mistake that people make to think that these passions are similar to reasons if they think the intentional object part is a reason. Okay.
But not only is there nothing in Hume's text to warrant the idea that passion contains reason, it runs contrary to the whole tenor of his account. So it's saying that Hume doesn't necessarily say anything about passions requiring reasons, but in fact, that whole idea goes against everything he's trying to say in accordance to passions.
Okay.
And then a passion is not any kind of reason for action, and it affords or provides no reason for action. So passion doesn't warrant action, and it really doesn't give any reason to act on something.
Mhm. Yeah.
A balloon might arouse the passion of joy, but that does not provide a reason for purchasing a balloon.
Okay.
It simply explains what may be behind one making that purchase.
Okay.
So I guess passions are more so an explanation, but and it gives the example of the balloon.
Okay.
You may experience the passion of fear about a snake, but that does in no way give you a sufficient reason to kill the snake. It simply explains why you might do such a thing. So again, same thing, kind of passion isn't why you do something, but it can explain why something was done.
Okay.
And then again, the passion possesses intentional objects, and this allows them to direct action. But that does not mean they also possess reasons or judgment.
Really.
So passions have objects which can direct action, but it doesn't explain reason or judgment.
All right. What can we put for this paragraph?
Um, so commentators say that Hume's passions have intentional objects. Um, or commentators will sometimes wrongly say that Hume's views of passion are similar to reason, but there's nothing that should warrant that idea. And then it goes into examples of why passion isn't why you do, or it goes into passion isn't the cause of doing something. It may explain why you do something. And then it finishes by saying it talks about like intentional, like passions and how they have intentional objects that can sometimes cause actions, but that doesn't mean that it's the reason or judgment, or that it has reason or judgment, I guess.
Mhm. They wrote, according to Hume, passions plus intentional objects, but not reason or reason for action. For example, balloon, joy, but no reason, snake, etc. Passions for that have intentional objects um, can direct those actions, but not through reason or judgments. So now let's take a look for throughout the map to look for any arguments that are repeated. So paragraph one, Hume says that passions are not reason, not unreason either. Paragraph two, they also can't be true or false, and that it's a mistake if we consider the 18th century conception of passion to be this 20th century conception of emotion. Paragraph three, what's the difference between passion and emotion? So passion is pre-conceptual, pre-emotional, pre-linguistic. So that's why an animal can have passion. Some examples of passions are like desire, joy, hope, fear, emotions, which are immediate feelings, whereas emotions are more so like happiness, sadness, etc. So we distinguish between the two there. And then paragraph four, there's no distinction between passions and the external world. Um, Hume says to act outside of yourself, um, but like to mean that the passions would make you want to act outside yourself to be that external world, but passion is not representative, but or I think it should be, but okay, but it does contain a representation of objects. So we introduced the thing about objects here, and then paragraph five, the relationship between um, passion to the object is like getting bitten by a snake or, etc. These are all just passions directed towards objects. And then paragraph 6, Hume says passions involve intentional objects, but not reason or reason for action. And then we have the examples with the balloon, with joy. You know, you could experience that feeling, but it doesn't mean there's some type of reason behind it. So, passion can direct actions, but not through like the lens of reason. So, okay, I think what I see repeated here is a passion directs your actions, and it's not the same thing as reason. And here we talk about it more, saying that again, emotions, like, or rather, passions are their own thing, not what emotions are. You say that again here as well, where we distinguish the two. We talk a bit about here about it gets kind of abstract here with not representation, but representation of objects. And yeah, we introduced the object idea. Paragraph 5 gives us an example of the relationship between passion and object. Then paragraph 6, um, passions plus intentional objects could lead, to action, but not through the lens of reason or judgments. So, what do you think we can put down here?
So for the main idea, I'd say that according to Hume, um is passions are different from reasons. Um and they are a reason for action. I would and then I would put something about how they're different from emotion. Or passions are your immediate feelings that are not tied to reason versus emotions. And then I would say that passions are linked to objects and they are the reason for action. I guess that's what I would put.
Oh, so tell me one more time.
So, according to Hume, passions are different from emotions and aren't tied to reason. And there's a relationship between passion and objects, which can discuss, which can kind of key into why we act the way we do.
Mhm. So, but passion does not equal reason slash emotions, and have these intentional objects, which I'm still not completely sure of what that means, but has those things that help direct action.
Mm.
So, I see the distinction between passions and reason, and the distinction between passion and emotions all throughout the passage. Um, but by the end, or rather by, I think, paragraph 4, but definitely paragraph 5 and 6, that's when we introduce the object idea. And yeah, how do you feel about this?
I feel good. I feel like I kind of need to stop. I guess maybe the reason I don't do as well is because I dwell on the things that I don't know. And if I keep moving forward, then maybe I can kind of create a better picture like we did today.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good point that I should address. So this is definitely, like, I've done like 10,000 of these passages. This is definitely one of the tougher ones because it's just so hard to get like, it's like nailing Jello to the wall or something. It's like hard to get what does he mean, like what, we're constantly saying what passion is not, but what is it then, It's very, very, even at least for me, even like the examples don't make that much sense. Like, how can I tell the difference between desire and aversion and all of that stuff? Like, like the joy, how is that really different from happiness, I guess, I guess joy is just something that you feel without having to have a reason for it, but happiness is something that, you would have a reason for. But yeah, this is definitely one of the tougher passages that I've seen, definitely. Um, just because it's so hard to like, nail it down to like, something like coherent. So, but yeah, so I wouldn't say that that's your problem, but you did address something where, if you don't understand something, like, you could, so you could, yeah, so if you see like a sentence that doesn't make sense, like for instance, in this one, it was like a sentence about,
I think the intentional object stuff.
yeah, yeah. And that might be kind of important because then we ended up including that into our main idea.
Yep.
So let me take one last look. The vocabulary of, or I'm looking at like paragraph 4, but, okay. So I guess if it involves working on outside, um, the self or whatever, uh, intention, you know, intentionality plays a role. Yeah, I'm not I'm not completely sure there, but I guess my point in saying this was like if you didn't understand a sentence like that, you could like reread it maybe once slowly, but if it doesn't make sense after that, just trust that it'll start to make sense as you move forward because either either they don't talk about it anymore, in which case it's not part of the main idea, right? Because in a main idea it needs to be in more than one paragraph. So either it doesn't mention it again, in which case you don't have to really worry about it, um, or they do mention it again, and it'll start to make more sense then.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think you did this perfectly. So good job.
I did have one question before we start on the actual questions. So I'm set to take my first full length this weekend, but the thing is, like with these cars passages, like I examine them the way that we practiced last week and the way we did today, but it takes me so long to do it that I don't know how I'm supposed to do that in terms of a full length with time. So like what am I like I get the questions right when I do it this way and I break it down, but it takes me like 30 minutes to do it.
Got it. Got it. So let's see. I put okay a blueprint test here. I put.
Yeah, I think I have it open right here.
Mhm. So go back to the page that we were on because you take a screenshot.
Yeah, let me do that.
Okay, so now if we just read what I highlighted for paragraph 1, it's Hume, reason cannot act, but passions motivate us, neither reasonable nor unreasonable, original thing. And you see how in the map for paragraph 1, it's essentially that. Hume says reason is not action. Passions do cause action, and passions are not reason or unreason and their own existence, right? So, what you can see from the screenshots from our sessions like this, you can see that, um, I mean, it'll take some time to practice it this way, but you can see how the highlights are functioning as like a pseudo map.
Yeah.
So, but
So you think for the quiz, I shouldn't try to write things out. I should just try to highlight and go off of it that way.
I would, let's see. So,
I guess maybe the writing is what takes me a long time because I've been doing it like the same exact way we're doing it, but like I have like an MCAT, like one of like the pads like I bought off Amazon that you can use.
like
Like
dry,
it's like the same, yeah, the same exact one you use in the testing room.
yeah.
And I've been writing on that.
Uh,
So, but that ends up taking me like 30 minutes for a passage, which I know obviously isn't realistic.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, like, okay, so like what I would do is like, I would like start to jot down some stuff,
Mhm.
and by the time I'm jotting some stuff down, I have already organized it in my head.
Yeah.
So I think that for you, you want to go, you want to read slowly, sentence by sentence, put it in your own words, right? And
Mhm.
and then I think what's best would be to just jot down a couple of things. It doesn't need to be as elaborate as what we wrote in this map together. So here, maybe I can give an example. So, and I haven't seen the questions yet, so I have no idea if what I'm about to do is going to be sufficient or not. But like, let's say that we, have less time or whatever. Paragraph one, I would just say that according to Hume, passion, um, motivates us not based on reason. Paragraph two, I would say passion does not equal emotion. Paragraph three, I could say passion equals pre emotional and like immediate feeling. Then P4 could say um, that passion leads to or not rep, but contains rep of object. P5, I could say error to the above because I'm still talking about relationship between, or between passion and the object. And we just have some examples here, like snake or whatever.
Yeah.
And then paragraph six, we say that int objects are not equal to reason. Um, and passions drive actions.
Mhm.
So yeah, so there we go. So, you know, uh, so I think it would be worth it for you to like, after each paragraph, think like, okay, what can I write for this? And things that I wrote on the right, like, uh, didn't take that long, right? So, um, and so I would say for because it's kind of hard to highlight properly for these passages. So I would say that do the map, but it does not need to be as long as we did it on the left. It could just be what we did on the right.
Yeah. And then, okay, perfect. I got it. I'll try to do that during my full length.
Yep, yep. And then also at the end of the passage, spend like 10-15 seconds, you know, figuring out the main idea.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, ultimately speaking, you want more than 50% of the passage includes the questions. I would say you want at least 50% or more spent on the passage rather than the questions.
Okay, perfect. Because I have been seeing an upward trend doing what we're doing. I just want to make sure that I have the time right too.
Yeah, yeah. So that's, another thing. Like, since we're gonna have you take what, let's see. like full length, six third party, and then just one, the AMC one.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll have more than enough. Um, because like yeah, the thing with timing is that you're gonna do that. You're gonna take your test under time conditions, and then it'll be hard at first, but you'll start to kind of be comfortable with the time crunch.
Perfect.
Yep. So you got
Okay.
screenshot. Oh yeah, might as well take a screenshot of like the other map that I wrote on the right as well.
Okay. I'm just gonna do it like
Yep.
this.
All right. Ready for the questions?
Yes. Okay. According to the author, our fears and other immediate feelings, and then question the first answer choice are defined as passions. So I remember that he did say the author did say that um the fears and other immediate emotions are defined as passions because immediate feelings are passions is what was mentioned in paragraph 3.
Oh,
So
so yeah, right here, right?
uh-huh.
Perfect. So yeah, according to the author, A is true, and then contradict our intellect seems rather out of scope. Um, do not develop into emotions. What do you think about that?
Last paragraph I think it mentioned that it can't, or one of the paragraphs, maybe it wasn't the last one, it does mention that eventually these feelings can become emotions.
Yep. Yep. If they
And
like
then,
compound on each other, right?
yeah,
Said it like,
said it.
okay,
Yeah.
right? Repetition in relation to the, yeah,
Mhm.
can crystallize into the emotion. So good job.
And then are never realistic. That's not really mentioned anywhere, so
Uh-huh. Um, and is there anything else that makes D not that good?
it's super extreme.
Yeah, never, right?
Yeah.
The thing about extreme words is all you need is one counterexample to disprove it.
Mhm.
Contrast that with if it said are usually not realistic.
That could be a plausible answer choice.
Yeah, because you could say, okay, here's a reason that or an example of something that's not realistic.
Mhm.
Not gonna hurt that argument because it only said some of it's realistic. But if it says never and you have one counterexample, it's not true. So good job.
Okay, perfect. The author seems to be trying to understand how passions differ from emotion. That's only mentioned in it's a very localized answer, so I wouldn't go with A right off the bat. How we can be more reasonable. Um, I don't think this is right because it says that passions are not reason. And then C, why reason does not motivate us.
Let's try this, right? So we can agree that this is a main idea question, right? And what do we have as our main idea?
We say that passion is not equal to reason or emotion, and that objects can help direct actions.
Yep. And so they can have objects. Um, but yeah, ultimately the passions, what are they like? What are their purpose?
They their purpose is to help direct action.
Good. So now that you have that in your head, when you see the solutions, it can really help.
So why passion can motivate us seems like the best answer to me.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it seems like 31% chose A.
Mhm.
Why do you think? Um,
Because that is mentioned, but it's not the main idea.
and you know, it doesn't seem like he's trying to figure out why
Mhm.
passions, I'm sorry, yeah, why they differ from emotions. He's more concerned with the motivation aspects.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Which of the following is an example of a passion? Feeling bad for running a stoplight. Um, I guess that could be. So in one of the paragraphs, it talks about how, well, I guess we have to define passion to answer it,
Yeah.
right?
So the reason that I'm doing this is because if you have your own answer, it'll make you less susceptible to the other ones.
Yeah.
So for the first choice here, you were kind of saying like, okay, that could be it. So let's come up with our own answer here. So what could be an example of a passion, or what, according to the passage, is,
A passion is an immediate feeling.
anything else?
Um, and a passion in relation to like an object
Good.
it will drive action.
Uh-huh. And um, give me, when you say drive action,
Like, do you just want me to come up with an example?
I don't know. Like, okay, okay. So what we're looking for then is, what type of thing?
We're looking for an example in which um an immediate feeling is leading to a certain action or leading to an action.
Uh-huh. And what are some of the examples that we had?
Oh, like the snake example, and there was the balloon example.
Oh, sorry. When I mean example, I mean like which words were used to describe.
Oh, like desire, joyfulness.
So we know that those are some of the passions,
Yeah.
and we know that the passions are related to objects.
Hmm.
Okay.
So feeling bad for running a stop light. Um, I wouldn't necessarily knock this one out yet, but I wouldn't exactly go with it either because it's not really driving action. There's an action there already that was done.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do what I usually don't do, which is let you see the passage here because there were a couple of things that I didn't include in here.
Yeah.
But here to here. Read that for me.
Um, Hume's passions are things like desire and aversion, grief and joy, hope and fear. Our emotions are things like happiness and sadness, boredom and surprise, guilt and gratitude. Oh, so then I would eliminate that because it's guilt.
Good, 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 good.
Um, Believing in God, that I wouldn't necessarily go with because there's not really a feeling link there. It's more of an action, right? But
So,
I guess I wouldn't make it a bad answer then.
so did we talk about, for instance, beliefs or anything like that?
Um, we talked about, oh yes, I see. But the passion is quite distinct from judgment or belief and has quite different properties.
Should we read that again?
Right here is where I was going off.
Okay, okay, yeah. So, so what is this from here to here? What is that saying?
Judgment or beliefs may, of course, be conjoined and associated with passions, but the passion is quite distinct from the judgment or belief and has quite different properties.
Good. So,
So I would not go with this one
which one?
because it's distinct from passions.
Wait, which one?
With B,
Yeah, because although they say that beliefs may be associated with passions, it will not be a passion,
Yeah.
right? So, okay, that's out.
Wanting to eat a pizza. Um, I guess. Um, so we define passions as immediate feelings that drive action. Um, I guess this could be a probable answer because it kind of explains why an action would be done, but I guess I'm not too set on it yet. Oh, desire, yeah. That technically is like an immediate, I guess, yeah. So it does fall into the definition.
Yeah, we don't even have to say that it's the immediate here because specifically what we wrote or what we highlighted here is that Hume literally said that passions are these things,
Mhm.
desire and stuff. So, yeah, sure, another factor might be an immediate feeling, but
Yeah.
all of these things, all of these choices, well, maybe A um could also be like an immediate feeling,
Mhm.
like you just do it and then you feel bad about it after or whatever. But
Yeah.
but yeah. So and then avoiding a teacher.
Mhm.
What are your
Avoiding teacher. I guess I kind of saw that as like aversion, like avoiding, like kind of like staying away.
so why wouldn't that be it then?
Because um um I don't honestly know. If I'm being honest, I'm kind of stuck between the two.
Yeah. So it's a good thing that we're doing this question now because you know when you're stuck between two, it's up to the most subtle, nuanced thing.
Mhm.
So
Oh, a teacher isn't an action. A teacher is
uh,
a thing. Is that why? Like a person.
so you might develop an aversion for something, like a feeling of wanting to be away from this person.
Mhm.
But how is that different from what D is saying?
Oh, D is avoiding. I guess, yes, it's different than aversion.
Because it's actually an action, right?
Yeah.
So for C, what if it said eating a pizza?
That's not passion because it's the actual action itself.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
also, yeah. So it's very, very subtle because
Yeah.
and you brought up a great point that aversion is here. So
Yeah.
this is sounds like aversion to me, but it's nuanced in that it's not the well, avoiding the teacher is an action, and passion can lead to actions, but they are certainly not actions.
Okay, so when it comes to like these nuances and things, I mean, that could be why I'm missing like certain questions. But does that just come with time, or does that come with me like taking more time to examine questions and then picking up on it?
Oh, so yeah. So for instance, let's see. Well, so whenever you're in doubt, like trust the main idea. And in the main idea, we said that passions are these things that help direct action. So from the main idea, we know that passions could help action happen, but
Yeah.
that they are not action.
Mhm.
So when we look at either like any of these, we see like, okay, A shouldn't be it because
A feeling.
that's a guilt, and they told us in the passage that emotion, like guilt is an emotion and it's
Mhm.
not a passion.
Yeah.
That's why that will be out. Believe
Mhm.
God has the belief part, or did I
Mm.
say that again?
Yeah, it was because
Okay, yeah.
they join.
Oh, there we go. So that's a great example here because it's so easy to say believing in God here because you see the word belief,
Yeah.
but they're saying that that just is associated with passions, but the passage is distinct from the judgment or belief.
Yeah.
So that's out. And so, yeah, so you just want to, okay, so now if we're left with C and D, right? So, and you could do this for anything that's like 50-50. You just want to like look at it under a microscope and see if you can turn 50-50 into 51-49.
Yeah.
That means that involves you trying to look at how they're different, like in an extreme sense.
Yeah.
Wanting to eat a pizza versus avoiding a teacher, right? So, you know, if you want to do something, doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing it,
Yeah.
but avoiding a teacher is doing it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I see. Okay. Got it. Oh, sorry, I skipped. Information in the passage suggests that pre-emotional states, um, it talks about how it mentions pre-emotional in one of the paragraphs. Um, and we talk about it. We wrote it. I want to see if we wrote it somewhere.
E3?
P3. Pre-emotional. Oh, yes. Pre-emotional. Um, so it's an immediate feeling. Okay. So pre-emotional states also precede or stop us from acting. It doesn't necessarily say anything about that. It just kind of mentions that it's an emotion, like an immediate feeling, and that the passions come before emotion. Like, so I wouldn't say this is necessarily right.
So when you said the pre-emotional state, what is that equal to?
Um, oh, it's equal to, um, it's like the immediate feeling.
Oh, so I think what I wrote in the map could be a little confusing. So I wrote Hume, according to him, passion, you know, something that animals can feel because it doesn't, it's pre-emotional, it's pre-conceptual. And
Mhm,
we have the examples here that end with immediate feeling. And then after that, I start talking about what emotions are,
mhm,
which is like the happiness and all that stuff.
mhm.
Pre-emotional would be equal to what?
Like before, like the feeling of happiness, sadness,
And that would be equal to what?
emotions.
Well, if it's pre-emotional, it can't be emotions, right?
Um, it'd be that is the immediate feeling, right?
Oh, just see what I'm underlining here?
Oh, the feeling.
Nope. What I'm
No. Oh, um, I see this underlined and then I see feeling underlined. Oh, passion. Sorry.
yep. So passion is the pre-emotional thing.
Hmm.
So this is asking us information in the passage suggests that passions, that's what they're asking us.
So it's saying basically, like information in the passage suggests that. Oh, so like basically, it's asking what a passion is or passionate states.
Yeah, something about it, right? And something that you'll see a lot in cars is mainly two ideas that we talk about. And I usually think about them as like a kind of like this type of list thing. So, I mean, we have passions, we have emotions, and we can put in, direct action, you know, be emotional and all that stuff. So, thinking about it that way can help. So, like, for instance, when we see the word pre emotional, instead of thinking of it as a brand new thing, we can think, okay, should that go in the passions column or should that go into the emotions column?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, stop us from acting. Um, I don't think that's right
Let me,
because it does like there's nothing really mentioned about how passions stop us from acting. If anything, it talks about how passions direct action. And
yeah.
if a pre-emotional state is a passion, then it would mean it
So
would direct action.
so I want you to be careful about saying like something like they never mentioned blah blah blah,
Yeah.
because a lot of times like, it can be like, what's implied, what's inferred, what's
Mhm.
implicit stuff. So
Yeah.
be careful about that part. But the other part that you said was straight up, our main idea says passions help direct action.
Yeah.
So stop us from acting should be
Um,
direct contradiction, which is the strongest reason to eliminate a choice.
yeah.
Okay.
So also precede feelings. Um, um, so passions are the immediate feeling. So I don't necessarily think this is right because if a passion is the immediate feeling, isn't the first thing you feel? So how could you proceed? Like, isn't this kind of defining it as emotion instead?
So so we know um that passions are pre-emotional,
Mhm.
but which means that they come before emotions.
Mhm.
Do they come before, I guess, feelings?
Well, if passions are the immediate feeling, wouldn't that be wrong?
Correct. So they won't precede feelings, it would be the actual feelings.
Yeah. And then are what emotions always begin as. Um, that I mean, there's a portion that says that passions can crystallize into emotions, but isn't that not, I mean, if it's the immediate feeling, I mean, I guess maybe I'm like jumping to conclusions.
So,
Um,
so two ways of handling this. So one, if they're saying that pre-emotional states are simply what happens before emotions, yeah, that is something that uh may not happen. Or I'll just mention it this way. So okay, what word in this choice do you not like?
always.
Yeah.
So eliminate it based off of the fact that it's extreme. And then are also experienced by animals. That's mentioned like directly. But passions are felt by both humans and animals. So that would make it correct.
Good. And you could see that there's a good amount of people who did precede feelings
Mhm.
and what emotions always begin as. Because if you think about it, if you didn't really read the passage closely, a pre-emotional state should be, it sounds like what happens before emotions, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, I totally understand why people would choose C and then B as well, right?
Yeah.
But that's just if you look at the word and you make your own kind of answer without really reading the passage, but the passage is the information that we got to use. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
The passage would be most appropriate in a collection of articles for, so critics of Hume's understanding of intentionality. So the main idea of the passage talks about passions and they direct, how they relate to objects and how that can help direct emotion. So this would be wrong because um critics of Hume's understanding of intentionality. Wouldn't this be wrong? Because I mean, like, this is kind of for like intentionality, right? Like passions are the reason for intention.
Okay.
So I would remove this.
So what is this question stem asking us?
Um, what are the passage like what the passage would be most useful for, or where the passage would be most likely found.
Yeah. So, and you've seen these kind of questions before, right?
Yeah.
So, like, this is like essentially what, because like the car's passages come from like specialized, you know, papers on things. Uh, so yeah, so this type of question just asks like, okay, where would you likely see this article?
Yeah.
So, and you said for A that it wouldn't be that because of what reason?
Because this passage is kind of for intentionality of and how like passions can kind of direct action, like passions in relations to objects can direct action. That was Hume's understanding. So I don't think a critic, like a collection of articles for critics would necessarily be tailored towards this.
Okay.
Um, Students learning about Hume's philosophy, that could work because Hume's philosophy is that passions are different from emotions and that they direct action. So this could work.
Yep. And I didn't put it in the path in the main idea part, but we mentioned Hume in almost every paragraph.
Yeah.
So okay, good. What about C and D?
Scholars of on 18th century philosophy. The 18th century versus the 20th century is only mentioned once, and it's not necessarily like the main idea of what this passage is about. So I wouldn't think to it would be found there because that 18th century versus 20th century kind of only talks about how like Hume's like it kind of only talks about Hume's beliefs in comparison to like 20th century beliefs and saying that the two are the same is a mistake. So
Okay.
that would be wrong.
Okay.
A special issue of a magazine on the topic of joy. Um, isn't that too specific? Like joy is just one immediate feeling, which means passion, which isn't the only thing that the article's about.
Good.
So, um, sorry. Um, what is the author's response to those who challenge Hume's conception on passage or on passions? Um, so just thinking back right away on those that challenge Hume's conceptions, isn't that mentioned in paragraph
Uh-huh.
uh, two, right?
Yep.
Where Pat like contemporary readers challenge Hume saying that emotion and reason is equal to reasoning is a mistake. Or saying that emotion and passion being equal is a mistake. So wouldn't um the author accept that because the author agrees that saying the two are the same is bad?
So what did we put in paragraph two?
You put that um that Hume says that reason is not equal to passion is what is talked about in paragraph one. So there's that up arrow. And then it's saying that this cannot be true nor false. And then contemporary readers who challenge Hume say that emotion is equal to reasoning, and this is a mistake because, and that it says it's a mistake.
Yep, because they're making the mistake thinking that passion is equal to emotion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, um, acceptance, Hume's model has to be modified to better resemble reality. Um, I don't think that's true because the passage isn't about modifying like Hume's. Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I would say that so if passion is not equal to emotion, then the author's response to those who challenge Hume's conception on passage would be um would see it as bad. Or I thought, I mean, it would see it as bad because to say that passion and emotion are equal is wrong.
So, do you think the author supports Hume's conception of the passions, or
Um,
thing, or does he think that it's the same thing as like emotions?
I think that um I don't necessarily remember the author's point of view really being talked about. I feel like it was mainly like the passage mainly focuses on Hume.
Huh?
So if there's not that indication, then would the author even have an opinion
So, um, what's this mistake here?
in the question stem?
Oh, do you see where I just put a
Oh, the mistake. Oh yeah, I see it now. So, um, the mistake is that um Hume, 18th century writers and Hume say or I guess it's to think that passion is equal to emotion.
and what about that? Is that
To equate the 20th century belief and the 18th century belief is incorrect.
good? And people who are saying that would be the ones who challenge Hume, right? So how do you think the author would feel about that?
So I guess the author would agree because the author does think it's a mistake to equate the two or to say that the 18th century belief and the 20th century belief are equal.
Wait, sorry, say that again?
So the author would agree with the challenge because it says that it's a mistake to equate 18th century writers and Hume's beliefs to the 20th century beliefs.
So, but who was making that mistake?
Oh, the challengers.
And
Oh,
so,
so the author would not agree. The author would disagree with that. So it wouldn't be A or B. The criticism is valid for just a portion of Hume's philosophy. Critical. Oh, so it'd be D. These critics misunderstand a key part of Hume's philosophy.
so for this one, when you first read the question stem, what were you thinking?
I was just kind of like, I didn't necessarily, I guess like I was thinking more about like what the author was thinking, but I guess I was mixing it up with like contemporary. I was thinking more so about what the contemporary readers
Uh-huh.
believed rather than the author calling it a mistake.
Yeah, so this question, so we always want to make sure we understand the question stem. So they're saying that the people who challenge Hume's conception of the passions,
Uh-huh.
would the author's response be to those people? So, uh, and then so that means we go through our map to look for, okay, where did we talk about people who challenge Hume?
Uh-huh.
Well, we talk about it in paragraph 2, right?
Yeah,
And what did the author say about that?
that it's a mistake.
Yep. So the people who were challenging Hume were equating emotion to passion, and then but the author says that that's a mistake. So the author does not agree with those critics
Hmm.
because he thinks that they don't really understand.
Yeah. Okay.
So from these questions that we just did today, what are there any did any show up that like are the types that you were talking about earlier that you Fine.
I think that what was it? This one.
Uh,
Um, or no, it wasn't this one. This one was similar.
mm, yeah, that one uh is tough. Um, so I guess what we can do um is okay, so like we can see, okay, what is this like what the author or Hume said about what passion is. So passions are things like desire, aversion, grief, joy, hope, and fear. Uh,
Mhm.
oh wait, one sec. We're saying so prior to this, we're saying that an emotion is this type of feeling, judgment, but also an expression in action, right? Whereas the passions are, you know, they don't have that action.
Mhm.
So for this one, you would look at, okay, passions are desires, aversions, griefs, fear, blah, blah, blah. And so if we look at each of these, we could see that oh, and then also what emotions are sadness, blah, blah, blah. So, like, if I were to draw that like two-column thing, I would do it like this. I would write emotion, I'd say action, um, happy, sad, boredom, etc. And then like on this column, I would say passion, and it's something that is like desire, aversion, joy, fear. And that this is, pre-emotional, um, immediate feeling. So between the two, it's hard to figure out how they're different because desire, I mean, joy, how is that different from happiness? Like, so that's why I think the most important thing is just that them saying that it's emotion is expresses an expression in action. So a couple of ways of approaching this would be, okay, feeling bad is guilt, and we're being told that guilt is a type of emotion. So that's out. Believing in God. So we did talk about beliefs, but I think they said about beliefs that it's,
They're distinct from passion.
yeah, where was the beliefs part again?
Yeah.
Oh, judgment or beliefs could be associated with passions, but they are not passion itself.
Yeah.
So that's why believing is out. And then, yeah, between avoiding a teacher, so then this could be like, okay, that's aversion. And then this is like, okay, that's desire. So how can we tell the difference, right? They both seem to be 50-50. So that's when we really want to look at it under a microscope. I mean, on the test, when you're like this, make if you're down to 50-50, just make a guess, flag, move on, um,
Mhm.
and come back to it if you have time. But yeah, when you're left with 50-50, you just want to really, really, really focus on how you can kind of separate the two. So what's
Uh,
the difference here? The
one
main
is an action, one isn't.
uh yes. So wanting doesn't
Mm.
mean, but avoiding is the action. So yeah, so that's a tough one. So okay, let's see. For um that passage that you had that other question on, let me
Yeah.
let me see your map.
It's on my iPad. Let me see
Okay.
if I can airdrop it to my laptop really quickly
Yep. Or you
and
can
then
look up passage again, and maybe I can do like a
run through it quickly.
or something.
Yeah, let me just send this really quickly.
Mhm.
Was the one from literally today.
Yeah. It's cool because I always was really obsessed with and still am with etymology,
Mm.
which you know is gonna help you out with. I told you about Latin Greek roots and stuff.
Mm-mm, you haven't told me yet.
Okay, so 60% at least of the English language is based on Greek and Latin roots.
Mm.
So, do you speak like Spanish or Italian or French or anything like that?
I took Spanish 5 years ago, if that counts.
Yep, yep. Now, have you ever noticed how words in Spanish are kind of like words in English?
Yeah.
Like, for instance, like in vivo,
Mm.
what's the vive or that and
Oh, live.
life?
Like,
So in
yeah.
vivo's in life, right? In vitro,
Like in vitro, like what does that mean in English?
in Spanish, or
Oh.
that vitro part.
Oh, like virtual,
Uh,
right? I can't remember.
maybe like a window.
Yeah.
And in vitro is like when you do like a test tube thing
Mm.
in glass,
Yeah.
right? And windows are typically made of glass.
Mm.
So that is going to really, really help you out because the reality is like these are Romance languages and they're called Romance languages not because they're about like love or anything like that. It's because they're from Rome.
Mhm.
Ancient Rome used to have conquered all of modern day France, Spain,
Mm.
and of course,
Yeah.
and then when Rome fell, those regions started to have their languages kind of turn into different dialects, but ultimately still the same. So,
Mhm.
anyway, let's see. There are certainly important stylistic differences between Germanic and Romance words, but support for any notion of a return to purity is misplaced. Um, so I guess I'll just kind of think aloud here. So they're talking about differences between Germanic and Romance words. Um, but there's nothing, it's not okay, so I'm just gonna write that there's differences, okay? But support for any notion of a return to purity is misplaced. Um, whatever that means. No language has ever been found which displays purity of words. There's also okay, so you know, nothing has this type of purity, which means
Mhm.
mixture from multiple languages. So okay, so that's that first paragraph, and I've already internalized it in my head to say that there's differences between these words, uh, but these words are not pure because they are mixtures of multiple languages. So, okay. So, I'm going to guess they're going to talk a little bit about, although there's stylistic differences, there's also similarities, but let's see. In the case of English, there's a special irony for its vocabulary has never been purely Anglo-Saxon, not even in the Anglo-Saxon period. By the time the Anglo-Saxons arrived in England from Germany, there had been already 4 centuries of linguistic interchange between Germanic and Roman people on the European mainland. Um, okay, so English, linguistic interchange, on the whatever European mainland between Germanic and Roman. The Roman soldiers and traders borrowed Germanic words, and the Germanic people borrowed Latin words. The integration was at times quite marked. Many Roman cohorts consisted of men from Germanic tribes, language mixing was there from the very beginning. I think that's the big thing here so far. We know that,
Mhm.
uh, we know that this process happened very early on because Latin words entered several other old Germanic languages of Europe as well, such as, so okay, we know that it happened early because it's also influenced like old High German, blah, blah, blah. The
Mhm.
Anglo-Saxons, whichever of these language families they came from, would not have been immune to this influence. So they're going to be affected by this cultural, like linguistic exchange here. So, okay.
Mhm.
Thus, we find, for example, Latin scrinium, meaning a chest for books and papers, appearing in a whole Old High German skrini, as well as Old English skrin, where it's pronounced shreen. Okay. The distinctive pronunciation of the Old English tells us that this word must have entered English from Latin long ago, reflecting a time perhaps as early as the third century when the Anglo-Saxons were changing the pronunciation of words containing SK to SC or SH. So, okay, we have a example here, which could be that in German and that in Old English, and then the Old English one had this distinct pronunciation that makes people think that, it happened, from Latin sometime in the third century or whatever.
Mhm.
The process is called palatalization. I guess they mean like the palate of the mouth, or I don't know. But anytime you see a new term, you want to be aware of it. So, okay, that's what it's called. And could be in words like fish and dish, Latin piscus and discus. Um, Very natural pronunciation change that can be heard in the speech of anyone who tries to pronounce SC words after had too much to drink. It was one of the features that have made the Anglo-Saxons sound very different from their old Scandinavian peers. If shrine entered the language after, before, sorry, if shrine had entered this language later, after this pronunciation trend was over, it would have kept the SC sound and would have ended up pronouncing it shrine in modern English. Things with school and blah, blah, blah. Mary Sir Johnson lists different moments. Okay, now we have some more evidence here. This many words, Latin entered English. So we have a bunch of these examples, blah, blah, blah. Number of possible roots. Cool. And then we have, to begin with, Latin words must have entered the Celtic speech during, okay, I guess that's the first thing. So begin, do the Celtic, okay, and then daily use until blah blah blah, picked up by the Anglo-Saxons, etc., etc. So, um, okay, so I take this to mean that Latin influenced these languages from a very long time ago, I guess.
Mhm.
Okay, and then this was the question.
Yeah, it's actually not similar to the one that I talked to you about earlier. I just realized it's actually very different.
Okay, okay. So the author's analysis on how English developed rests on the assumption that
So I had put B because I thought that there was that the whole like two paragraphs of pronunciation that it was talking about, like I thought that was a really good answer choice because
uh,
isn't it that like
oh,
there's that assumption that I guess like that Latin and
let me just
English
let me take a
the
look.
difference?
Oh,
Oh, sorry.
I'm gonna try these out. So, A, there were good reasons for Anglo-Saxons to borrow Latin words. I don't think I read anything about there being a good reason to do that. English pronunciations generally differ from Latin pronunciation. Um, like I think I just saw that in. that one. Wait, let's see. Paragraph here. Okay. Hmm. I mean, I see that there's a pronunciation change between Anglo-Saxons and well, they did say it in the previous paragraph as well. Okay, let me see. So, okay, so German, so okay, a Latin word, a German version of that word, an English version of that word. Apparently, the English one is where it was pronounced differently. This distinctive pronunciation of the Old English form tells us that the word must have entered English from Latin long ago, reflecting a time as early as the third century when the Anglo-Saxons were changing the pronunciation of words to be from this into that. And um okay. Okay. I think I may understand here. Um I don't know if that's something that generally happens. We are given specific examples, but like we only have these specific examples. Nothing's really stated about how it's a general thing. Um, but let me look further. The English language did not properly exist until it gained Latin words. I mean, I don't think that that's necessarily true because there, were these people before the Romans went there, I guess. The Latin words that became English were not originally Anglo Saxon. Okay. So what was the main idea for this again? I forgot. Was it me saying that Latin is what influenced the English language? Right? Is that true?
Yeah, that's what you said.
All right.
And that's what I have too.
Uh-huh. So if our main idea is that the English language developed originally through the Latin um, words or the Latin words, then we could say that the Latin words that became English were not originally Anglo-Saxon because that would mean that they came afterwards, right? So I also see it in this second paragraph here. So, in the case of English, there's a special irony for its vocabulary had never been purely Anglo-Saxon, not even in the Anglo-Saxon period. By the time the Anglo-Saxons arrived in England from Germany, there's already been 4 centuries of linguistic exchange or interchange between Germanic and Roman people on the European mainland.
Mm.
Roman soldiers and traders borrowed Germanic words, and the Germanic people borrowed Latin words, and this language mixing has been present from the very, very beginning.
Mm.
Uh, and then afterwards, we said that the uh, we know that this process happened early because Latin words entered into other Germanic languages, and then we say that Anglo-Saxons, whichever of these language families they came from, meaning Old High German, Gothic, and Old Saxon, would not have been immune to this influence. The influence meaning the Latin influence. I think the main idea here is talking about how Latin, oh, and then all the way on the bottom, I kind of read the bottom too quickly, but all the way on the bottom, it says that here. So it says here that the Latin words, you know, happened before the Anglo-Saxons because the Anglo-Saxons, picked up some of that.
Mm.
So I think, yeah, so I think that it'll be D just because it's close to our main idea, in which Latin is the original kind of source, I guess, of like the language. And, it influenced all these other things, all these other types of people, like Anglo-Saxons. Yeah.
Okay.
So tough. So, okay, now if I look at B, English pronunciations generally differ from Latin pronunciations. Um, and we know that there are pronunciation differences, but it doesn't seem like, yeah, I don't think it's going to be it just because it doesn't seem like it's happening generally.
Okay. So is that something I should look out for? Like, for example, like if the examples are very specific, but the answer choice says generally, I can't, like, I shouldn't jump to that conclusion and like go, like immediately eliminate like an answer like that.
Oh, when you say an answer like A,
Like, yeah, like B that says that something generally happens when it gives a couple examples.
yes. Okay, okay. So I think the number one important thing is to understand that this is a main idea question, and we want it, in doubt, when in doubt, choose whatever is closest to the main idea. So,
Mhm.
so if they're asking, how the author is analyzing the development of English, like what assumption does that rest on? Does it rest on the fact that so now English pronunciations generally differ from Latin pronunciation? Let's not even think about the generally part, right? If it
Mhm.
without that, right? Is that
Oh,
yeah, like is that something that you need to assume in order to analyze how the English language developed?
no.
Mhm. Because throughout this, as you said, there are tons of examples of pronunciation changes.
Uh-huh.
But does that mean that, that that's what made the development of the English language, things being pronunciated differently? It's kind of the opposite. Like they're pronounced differently, but they come from the same source, right? And if we're talking about the question stems asking about English, the development of the English language, like what assumption is that based on? So, if they speak, if there's different pronunciation, that doesn't necessarily, I mean, not to use outside info or anything like that, but you could take someone from who's not from the US or England or anything like that, and you teach them English, and they can learn English and they just pronounce things differently, we can't say that that person, for instance, has not learned English, right? The pronunciation is not as important as just the fact that the language itself is from Latin, which means that there's literally words. And I think we say that in the second to last paragraph here.
Yeah.
The different moments Latin entered English, but uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, this is a tough one because you're right. They talk about pronunciation,
Mhm.
in two of these paragraphs.
Yeah.
I guess the takeaway from this type of question is while B might be a true statement, does it answer the question?
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Okay, but that was basically everything I kind of wanted to go over today.
Got it. So, okay, what will you be doing between
Um, I need to start working on the section banks like more intentionally, but because I've been sick, I'm kind of behind.
totally?
And then I'm like trying to and also like go through because like I need to still finish reviewing the 166 Jack Weston content things. So I'm finishing up that, but I'm also trying to like I guess like prepare for like my first full length in terms of how I'm gonna approach cars. So
Are you so you're t taking again on the 26th?
yeah, that's my plan. I'm trying to like I mean if there's like a little bit of room for me to wiggle and try to catch up, I would, but like I feel like it's better for me to just start taking those full lengths right away.
Hmm.
I don't know, it's up to you. I'm just
You're still taking it on January 11th?
yeah, my I want to try to move it to my like goal date was to get January 24th, but I was like so far deep in the queue that I didn't get it.
Hmm.
And I know January dates are really hard to get.
Got it. So let's see. So a couple of things about the blueprint about the exam that you're going to do.
Mhm.
I don't know if we talked about this before, but you're not going to use the blueprint cars.
Yeah.
That
Oh, yes.
so what you can do is, um, well, I forgot for AMC cars material, the volume, one, two diagnostic tool.
Yeah, I finished all of those already.
Okay, so we'll have you do Jack Weston, and what you can do is you can, use that Q bank to just straight up make a test of, you know, 53 questions or, nine passages for cars.
Yeah.
And you can use that as cars. So basically you're going to do your blueprint test with that. When you finish the CP, you just open another window, start
Yeah.
Jack Weston test for cars,
Uh-huh.
timed and everything like that. And
Mhm.
once you're finished, go back to the blueprint test and do that BV section, do that psych social section, and we'll use like a scaled score converter, raw score converter to get
Uh-huh.
score for you. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and also timing strategies. So,
Uh-huh.
for instance, uh, so instead of like constantly having to look at the clock, you're gonna have
Uh-huh.
pre-designated timing checkpoints. So the first one is when you get up to question number 20.
Uh-huh.
You look at the clock, you should have an hour left. If you have less than an hour left, just like gently, I don't want you to rush, gently kind of tell yourself to go a little bit faster. Next one is question 30, in which you should have 45 minutes left.
Uh-huh.
And then when you get up to question 40, you should have 30 minutes left.
Uh-huh. And you said start with discrete, right?
Oh, that something that you've done before?
It's not something I've ever done before, but I read it on your Reddit post, so I wasn't sure.
So that yeah, so those posts are like from from really like a while back, but that was something that like I did, but it's something that I kind of like stopped like recommending
Encouraging.
students to do because it could confuse people. I mean,
Mhm.
it seems like because what I did was I looked at tests and I wrote down like when the like what question number is like the first discrete, the second discrete, the third discrete, etc. And so when I started the test, I just go to navigation, I go directly to those discretes. So
Mhm.
I but that involves moving around a lot and
Yeah.
might not be easy. So
Yeah.
um so yeah, I think doing it normally, I mean, it's up to you, but
Mhm.
normally I think would be probably safest right now. Uh
Yeah.
but yeah, these checkpoints just give you three opportunities to adjust your pace. And also without you having to like stare at the clock and get, freaked out.
Mhm.
And one last thing is you should not let any question take longer than 1.5 minutes.
Uh-huh.
Of course, how can you tell if you're not going to look at the clock? You're going to feel for it. But it'll be like, let's say you do like a long calculation, it
Mhm.
doesn't give you an answer that you see in the answer choices. That's a good time to make an educated guess, flag, move on. Um,
Mhm.
because all the questions are worth the same amount of points, but they're all greatly differing in
Mhm.
difficulty and time that it takes. So if you do this with discipline, like 1.5 minute max, ideally, once you finish like question 53 for cars or 59 for the sciences, um, you're going to like, if you have time, like hit, review flagged and then review the flagged ones and, use your own appraisal of like, this one I flagged, I'm 20% sure of, this one I'm 50%, this one I'm 75%, because when you do your review flagged, you should do the one that you're least certain of,
Yeah.
that kind of order, unless it's going to take really, really long. But
Mhm.
these timing strategies should work out for you. And
Mhm.
I would say between now and Saturday to just do as much cars practice as possible.
Mhm.
And um yeah, so uh
Okay.
yeah. And
Do you
so
have math shortcuts inside your Google, what is it, the Google Drive you shared with me? Are there shortcuts in that?
oh yeah, it should be in the PDFs.
Uh-huh. Do you think I should review those or
You could if you want. But sometimes it could be more confusing for people. Uh
yeah.
Whereas a lot of times it could be easier to just do scientific notation. So, but we could have like we can talk about in one of our future sessions stuff about the math, but I would say that right just between now and Saturday, or between now and your practice test, to prioritize um cars.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, and send me an email of that etymology passage that we just did, the map that you wrote down. Uh,
Okay.
I'll just give you some feedback on that.
Okay, sounds good. I'll send it to you right now. And then I can go ahead and sell you right now too.
Oh yeah.
How much is it going to be?
162.
Okay, perfect. And then can I just, I think I have 162. I just sent it to you. Can you just let me know when you get it?
Mhm. Oh yeah. Oh wait. Okay, I got it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, good luck, and I will see you. And I'm gonna guess you are just gonna schedule for next week or something.
I think I already scheduled for like I don't know. Let me see. I think I've put myself on your schedule as much as possible.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I see it. All right then. So yeah, good luck.
Okay, perfect. Then we'll meet with you next Monday then.
All right. Take care.